In today's environment, it seems like it's harder and harder to know what should I eat to be healthy because we've got so many different interests that are pushing in different directions, and it all seems like the information is convoluted because one group will tell you fat is okay. Another group is going to tell you you have to avoid the fats. Other people are going to tell you to make sure you get a bunch of grains. Yet other people are going to say you need to go keto. So what do you really need to eat to be healthy? I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've been blessed to work with over 5,000 patients, ultimately helping them optimize brain function, body function, and then supply the energy to those areas so that no matter what environment they're in, they can pull the things that they need to actually be healthy. So this is a big question, right? This is something that a lot of people are facing, and there's people like politicians like RFK has talked about changing the food guide pyramid. There's a lot of doctors that have talked about the need to change the food guide pyramid. And ultimately, what is the way that you need to look at this topic? How can you figure out what is going to be the best diet that you can feed your family to get them the best benefit, right? So, this is something I've followed. I've been interested in health since, I don't know, maybe 5th, 6th grade is when I got interested in it. And it's something that has changed dramatically through that time period. And there's been a lot of different things that come out that say, you need to eat this. It's easy to follow that stuff, right? It's easy to follow this change or that. But sooner or later, you get enough changes in there, and nobody has any idea what to do. And that's how a lot of people like this. There are a lot of big corporations that like you not to know what's going on. Because if you don't know what's going on, you give up, right? So you say, whatever, I'm just going to eat what I eat and, deal with the consequences later. That's not a good situation to be in. We want you to be empowered to make the best choices for your family. So, metabolism is a major factor in overall health. Like I said, we've got to work on brain function, we've got to work on body function, but the big part of that is if we have everything else functional and we don't have the energy to run that, it's kind of like having a sports car sit in your driveway and not having any gas for it. It doesn't do you any good, right? We've got to be able to use the thing that we have. We've got one of the most incredible machines that was ever developed just in our bodies, in our brains. We've got to have the energy to run that stuff. When we have that, everything works nicely, and we don't have symptoms, we don't have disease, we don't have disorders, we don't have any of this other stuff, right? But if we don't have one of those factors, brain function, body function, or the metabolism to supply it, we run into trouble. So when we look at diet, this is something that we have to really pay attention to. What is one of the most damaging things that we do to our metabolism? Sugar, refined carbs, right? Everywhere. Because in the 60s, they came out with, hey, don't eat fat. Really what we find out now, and we've known this for quite a few years. There's been, research pushing back 15, 20 years on this. But, that it was based on shady science, A. B, the sugar industry ultimately paid for that science and pushed everybody to say, hey, you know what, fat's bad. It's not us over here. It's the same playbook as tobacco, right? Tobacco used to pay doctors to say, hey, smoking's good for you. Same playbook. Guess what a lot of those tobacco companies bought after tobacco got, kind of taken out or minimized in some way, shape, or form? A lot of them went and bought food companies. So is this a surprise that is the playbook on? No, it shouldn't surprise anybody. But that's ultimately what's happened here. And so people are scared to eat fat, and this is so ingrained because it's been, 50, 60 years that we've been told this. And now we're finally, say, hey, you know what? Enough is enough. The fat is not what we need to watch. It's the sugar, it's the refined carbs. And that is the truth of things, because the sugar and refined carbs are like throwing grass on a fire. You throw a bunch of grass on a fire and it's gone, right? So what's your body have to do? It has to make more. What do you crave to make more energy? More sugar, more refined carbs. You throw more off, gone. We've got to have a steady supply of energy. So I guess the analogy for this is, instead of throwing on grass on the fire, we take a nice heavy log, we throw that log on the fire, and then it burns for a long period of time, producing consistent heat, right? That's what we want in our bodies. If you have ever seen the kid that you give sugar and they just go wild, our bodies are doing the same thing. We're just able to contain it in some way, shape, or form. It's really, really inflammatory to do that. So making sure that the sugars and refined carbs are clear up on the top of the pyramid is what I hope that they're going to do on the next food guide pyramid. Now, when we talk about fats, some are better than others, right? We've been told that trans fats are really, really bad, and they are. They're terrible for us. And that's what, goes into cakes, cookies, crackers, things like that that are mass produced. Just tends to make things a little bit easier, right? It's cheaper and all of those things for the food companies, so that's what they tended to put in there. Now, you might not see trans fats on the label. There is a trick for this. Some of those products do still have trans fats in them. The reason for that is because it's cheaper and it's easier, right? So what they do is they minimize it to the level that they don't have to put it on the label. Shady, right? But it is the truth of how it goes there. So if you see in the ingredient list hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated fats of any kind, it likely has trans fats in it. Other fats, saturated fats, are not nearly as bad as what people think that they are. Everybody's worried it's going to drive your cholesterol up, and there's a lot of studies out there that show that it really doesn't have that much correlation with your cholesterol levels. So, cholesterol levels are linked to other things. We're not going to dive into that today, but saturated fat is not something to be scared of. Does that mean you should go out and just eat bacon all day? No, I mean we've still got to have room for a variety of calories. We need our protein, we need our healthy fats, and there's room for other things in there, but we've got to have that in there. When we're eating those fats, things like avocado oil, things like nuts, things like that are, like they're moving toward lard and different things like that. Saturated fat, right? But it's a more stable cooking form. So when you fry the lower quality fats, the seed oils and the vegetable oils and different things like that, they break apart. It changes the structure of that fat, and it actually makes it more inflammatory for your system. So you go somewhere that has that fat under heat for a long period of time, whether that's all day long it's on, or they don't change it for a week. That does happen. As that week goes on, as that day goes on, those fats get worse and worse and worse for you, and that's where we start to get more and more inflammation from that. So something to be aware of. Now, we still need to have fruits and vegetables are a very good thing, right? Just because we say minimize your sugar, vegetables are a very good thing. Now, how I would recommend you do the vegetables and fruits is in the morning, have more of the fruits. In the afternoon, have more of the vegetables. This gives you time to burn off the sugar from those fruits. You still don't want to have a bunch of high glycemic fruits, like the watermelon and pears and grapes and things like that are going to be higher glycemic. They're going to spike that blood sugar up higher. What we want to stick to is more of the berries, the Granny Smith apples, things that aren't going to spike the blood sugar so much. And you can look up a list on Google, what are the high glycemic fruits and vegetables. And it's going to give you that. Sticking to the lower glycemic ones, the ones that don't have the impact on your blood sugar, is going to be more important. It's going to be healthier for you long term. In the afternoon, sticking toward those vegetables that have plenty of fiber, they don't have as much sugar, so they don't spike our blood sugar. All these other things are going to be more important. We don't have as much time, especially in the evenings, to burn all of that off before we go to bed. We don't want to go to bed with high blood sugar because that sets you up for an absolute disaster. The more that blood sugar is spiked, the more inflammatory everything is. So, this really kind of gives you, the whole grains. Are they necessary? We should touch on that. So, when we look at grains and all of that stuff, there is not a requirement for those in our diet. So, there has been no shown level that we absolutely have to have. So, minimizing those to some extent. Now, there are vitamins and minerals in some of that stuff. So getting some of that is important. Getting that healthy protein is important. We'll touch on that in just a second. But the grains are not something that I would recommend eating a ton of. Even the whole grain foods and different things like that, a lot of them have sugar in them. A lot of have refined carbs along with it, different things. So if you can find grains that you can either mix with fat. So for example, if you make rice, putting a little butter in with that rice slows down the absorption of that. So you don't eat that rice and have a huge spike in your blood sugar. You eat that rice with that fat that's on it, the butter, And when you get that butter in there, it slows down the absorption of it. And instead of having a spike like this on your blood sugar, you have a spike like this. It just doesn't raise it as fast or as much. And that's something that's very protective of you. So looking lastly at meats, we want to stick more to the healthy meats, right? If we can get our healthy fatty acids from our meat, it's even better. And what the recommendation is more from Mediterranean diet. I love the Mediterranean diet. I think it's an easy thing for a lot of people to follow. I think it's something that gives you a good blend of different things. It gives you the flexibility that you're going to be able to do it for a long period of time. And many diets work, right? It's just being able to be on one that you're going to be on for the long term. Where we see fad diets and everything like that, people go and they make drastic changes, and then they can handle them for a week or two, and then they're off, right? It just doesn't work out long term. So we've got to have something that's sustainable. Wild caught fish, seafood in general is going to be something that's better for you because it does have a better fatty acid profile. Now the farmed fish doesn't have as good of a fatty acid profile. Same thing goes when we look at beef, right? If we look at the grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it has a better fatty acid profile than those that are just corn-fed. So that's the important thing. If we look at grass-fed, grass-finished, it has a similar fatty acid profile to wild-caught fish. If we get the corn-fed, it has we get more of those fats that are going to actually inflame the body. We get more of those other chemicals that are going to inflame the body. So sticking to the grass-fed, grass-finished actually can, I wouldn't say it's a replacement for the seafood, but it helps to minimize some of that other stuff. So you're getting some of those benefits with the seafood, with the grass-fed, grass-finished, that you get from those healthy fats. And mixing those two together, if we can get nutrients, multiple nutrients that are beneficial from the same food, easier to do, right? So that's kind of the guide that I use on some of this stuff. It's difficult to touch on everything. I know that this is not a comprehensive video, and it gives you a place to start. That's the best thing, right? So think about this. What are you feeding your family? Is it leading to them being healthier, or is it leading them down a path that's going to lead to more disruption? Because when we have that metabolic disruption, that's where we see behavioral issues. That's where we start to see, obesity. That's where we start to see autoimmunity. That's where we start to see sleep issues. We see all of these things, and all of those things start in one place, and then they just cascade into another thing and another thing and another thing. And you get that snowball rolling big enough, what does that lead to? Diagnosis, disease, chronic issues, things like that. So start out with the metabolism. It's one of the easiest things. It's one of the things that we can control at home, and then we can build from there. So I hope that this is helpful. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me either in the comments or through a direct message. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. I know that your attention is the most important asset that you have. I hate wasting that, so I appreciate you spending some of that with me. So I will catch you on next week's video.